I will be one of your co-hosts for today. Before we begin, we just have a couple of housekeeping items to start with. Um, Today's session is going to be recorded. The recording will be available at sfethics.org. All attendee microphones will automatically be muted during the presentation. Attendee video is also disabled. During the Q&A segment towards the end of the session, use the raise hand button and wait for the host to call your name and unmute your mic to ask a question. If you're joining by telephone, dial *3 to raise hand, and you may also submit questions through the chat. All the questions submitted through the chat will be answered during the Q&A session, so we will not stop the presentation to answer questions that go in the chat. That'll be all in the Q&A period. And questions can also be submitted through the Ethics Commission Form 700 support portal. And I will add a link to the chat right now for the support portal. And there it is. Okay. So a link has just been added to the chat. So we are going to go over a few agenda topics today. We're going to do an overview of the Form 700, who files and when, how to file, what is reported, and we also will be going over resources and filer support, which just was previously mentioned, the Form 700 support portal, and then we will have a Q&A session. And from here, I will pass it over to my colleague, Anna, who will also be a co-host, and she can introduce herself.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Anna De Carolis. I'm a training specialist here at the Ethics Commission. Thank you, Kevin, again for introducing me. And I will start with a general overview of the Statement of Economic Interests that is also known as the Form 700, which is the topic for today's information session. Per the Political Reform Act, state and local agencies must adopt a conflict of interest code that identifies all officials and employees within the agency who make governmental decisions based on the positions that they hold. So individuals who are designated in the conflict of interest code as making or participating in governmental decisions must disclose their financial interests as specified by their position's disclosure category. And we'll talk about what that means in a few slides. Those disclosures are made in the form called Statement of Economic Interest, also known as Form 700. So annual statements of economic interest are required to be filed by public officials and designated employees throughout California each spring, which is the topic of today's information session. Additionally, the Form 700 must be filed within 30 days of assuming office and of leaving office. The Form 700 provides transparency and ensures accountability in two ways. First, it provides necessary information to the public about an official's personal financial interests to ensure that officials are making decisions in the best interest of the public and not enhancing their personal finances. And second, it serves as a reminder to the public official of potential conflicts of interest so that the official can abstain from making or participating in governmental decisions that are deemed a conflict of interest. In the next slide, we're going to look into who files the Form 700. Elected officials, department heads, board members, and commissioners must file the Form 700. Also, consultants and certain employees whose positions have been designated in the city's Conflict of Interest Code must file. This session is geared towards the latter group, also known as designated filers. Again, the reason why these positions are called designated is because they are identified or designated in the Conflict of Interest Code. All filers, designated employees, as well as other filers, complete their statements of economic interests online, electronically, through an e-filing platform called NetFile. You may ask yourself, how do positions get added to the conflict of interest code? Well, every other year, there is a citywide process where departments can review and update the list of positions that file the Form 700. The next biennial review process will take place later this year. Also, and finally, candidates running for city elective office are required to file statements of economic interest as well with the Department of Elections after they've declared their candidacy. But we won't be focusing on that today. In this slide, we'll go over when we file the Form 700. So these are the due dates. When you assume office, that means when you start your job or you begin performing the duties of your job or your position. The assuming office statement is due within 30 days of that start date. And that assuming office statement is a 1-year look back from your start date. We also file a Form 700 annually, and that is the deadline that we're looking at right now since it's annual filing season. The due date each year is April 1st. The only exception is when the deadline falls on a weekend or a holiday, as it is this year's case. We'll talk about that in a second. The annual filing covers the year before. It's just like filing taxes. In 2024, we're filing taxes for the year 2023. You're also required to file a statement when you leave office within 30 days of leaving your position. And you generally file any reportable assets that you held in the portion of the current year that you were in office. Now let's look at the exceptions. You will see an asterisk there on the slide. So this year's due date has been moved to April 2nd, 2024, because April 1st falls on a state holiday, which is Cesar Chavez Day. When the deadline falls on a weekend or state holiday, it is moved to the next business day. Another exception is if you assumed office in the last quarter of the year. In this case, between October 1st, 2023 and December 31st of 2023. If you assumed office between those dates, you will skip this year's annual statement. The idea is that you're assuming office already covered almost all of that year anyway. The following year's annual statement will cover the period from when you assume office until the end of the filing period. Also, if you just started your job in the first part of this year, that is from January 1st of this year, 2024, until April 2nd, you're not going to file an annual statement for that position because you didn't work the year before in that position. Now, if you do not qualify for any of these exceptions, that is, if you assumed office before October 1st of 2023, then you have an annual statement due by April 2nd. The annual filing is already available on your NetFile account. So no need to wait until the last minute. You can file right away, but you have until April 2nd to file on time. Now, I'll hand it over to Kevin to go over the specifics on how to file your Form 700.
Thanks for passing it over. Now we're going to talk about how to file your Form 700. And if you would like, you can feel free to follow my instructions on a different tab to test it out yourself. You don't have to, but please feel free. So the first step is just to navigate to the ethics website, which is sfethics.org. And from there, there's going to be a banner on that homepage. And you're going to just click on the banner where it says it's time to file Form 700 and complete the training requirements. Keep in mind that training requirements apply just to city officers, but Form 700 requirement applies to everyone on this call, on this training. So once you click the banner, this will take you to our filer page. And after you see you'll see a box that says important announcements and highlights. Right underneath that, you're going to see a section where it says file your Form 700, and there'll be a button there that says e-file Form 700. Go ahead and click that. And once you click that, if you're navigating along, where you'll land is you'll see the NetFile landing page. And if we move on to the next slide, and the NetFile landing page would look something like this. And once you're on the NetFile landing page, you'll enter your email address and password to log in. If you perhaps forgot your password, lost it, just don't know what it is, that's okay. There is a lost your password link underneath the password text box. So you can go ahead and click that. It will ask you to enter your email address, and then you'll receive an email with instructions on how to update your password. Um, Essentially, you just have to complete and submit the form online by the due date, April 2nd, which Anna mentioned earlier. And we also want to note that paper submissions are not accepted. If you were testing the website navigation over to NetFile, you can come back to the webinar now and go over what your NetFile account will look like. So we will move on to the next slide. And in this slide, after you sign in, you'll actually land on what is called the filer dashboard. At the very top of it, you can actually see your disclosure category. In this case, it's category 1. Not everyone is going to have category 1, but you'll see it up at the very top. We'll talk about this more a bit later. And clicking on the view category information document opens up a PDF with some more information. On the right-hand side, you will see links to video tutorials and reference materials with more information on how to start a filing, how to amend a filing, as well as reference materials on what to disclose, FAQs, etc. On the bottom right, you will also find a link to our support portal where you can contact a member of our engagement and compliance team with specific questions. Now, if we move back to the center of the screen, to fill out your form, well, you're going to see filings to complete, and there'll be a list of current filings that you should complete. In order to start a selected document, you want to click first on the create text box, and it'll just put a check mark in there, and then you can click the start selected document. If you have more than one statement there, you might be able to combine them. It will, if they are available, to combine, both checkboxes will be highlighted under the create section. If not, it will tell you that you have to fill out a certain form first in the create checkbox. Below the list of filings to complete, you will see the e-filing history section. From here, you can view and amend a filing that's already been submitted. You cannot delete a complete filing, but you can always amend a filing. We'll talk about more amendments more later in this webinar as well. One other thing to note, if you can't finish in one sitting, you can just log out. When you log back in, you can edit or delete the draft that you started. If you already started a statement, instead of a checkbox, you'll actually see edit and delete. So the checkbox will be gone, and you'll see a link that will either say, well, it'll say both. You'll see 2 links. One will say edit and one will say delete. So you can either edit or delete that draft. And let's move on to the next slide. Now let's talk about starting your filing. So once you start your filing, you will be put into the Form 700 cover page. Your Form 700 cover page is pre-filled with the information entered when your filing officer created your NetFile account. Your contact information should be business contact information, not personal, because this is a public document. Scroll down to review your contact information and to see the different schedules or sections of the form. And then follow the on-screen prompts to complete the form. Click Save along the way. And once you are done, you'll be able to submit your statement before the deadline. Next slide. Amending a Form 700. We'll talk about amendments, which I mentioned a couple slides ago. What if you realize you made a mistake or omitted something on your Form 700? It's no big deal. You can amend your filed statement. At the bottom of your filer dashboard on NetFile, you will see your e-filing history, and that's where you would go and file an amendment. As you can see, the highlighted section on this slide, you would just click that link that says amend. Amendments can be made to your current or prior year's filings. They can be made anytime without penalty. They should be filed as soon as the error or discrepancy is known. An important piece of information, amend the correct or relevant year's filing. So if you made a mistake on the statement you filed last year, you would make an amendment to that statement, the last year's statement, not anything this year. Only amend the pages that only amend pages. Only the amended pages will be visible on that amendment, not the entire original filing. Next slide, please. As we discussed earlier, this Form 700 is a public document. E-filed statements are available to the public online with limited redactions. The search portal to find them is on our website, is on the Ethics Commission website. We will put a link in the chat for the portal. Statements without redactions are available by request to the Ethics Commission. On this page, you can search by first name or last name. You can also do partial name searches. Just some tips. It's best to clear out the date fields. They'll be auto populated. So if you're looking for a certain year, you can put the year in, or you can leave it blank. Leaving it blank, it will basically pull up all filed statements for that filer for all electronic filings for that filer. And then once you click search, you can just scroll down to see the results. And next slide. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about failure to file, late filing, and enforcement. What if you don't file or you file late? I know nobody on the call is going to do this, but we're going to talk about it anyway. There's no provision in the law to extend Form 700 deadlines, except if it falls on a weekend or holiday. Then it would be due the following business day, as Anna mentioned earlier. Being on sick leave or sabbatical or extended vacation or regular vacation or out of the office or just forgot to do it or my internet is not working, these are not exceptions. The lesson here is to please file on time. If you file late, there are late fees of up to $10 a day, up to the cumulative amount stated in the late Form 700 or $100, whichever is greater. Also, non-filers may be subject to disciplinary and or enforcement actions with potential fines up to $5,000 per violation or 3 times the cumulative amount not properly reported. In addition, members of boards and commissions who fail to file their Form 700 in a timely manner or fail to do their ethics and sunshine training certification are disqualified from all participation in voting on matters listed in their boards and commission meeting agendas. So the lesson here is please file on time. And from there, I will send it back over to Anna to discuss what is reported.
Thank you so much. And thank you for dropping your questions in the chat. I'll continue with the presentation right now with an overview on what is reported in the Form 700. So first we'll talk about disclosure categories. What does that mean and why does it matter? So what is disclosed by your position in the Form 700 is determined by your department based on the range of duties and responsibilities of your position. For example, some departments limit disclosures to investments that are related to businesses that provide the types of services that are purchased by your department. Other positions may have more potential to influence governmental decisions and more risk for conflict of interest. Thus, more disclosure is required. That is reflected in your disclosure category. So your disclosure category appears on your dashboard on NetFile when you log in. We will see a screenshot next of what that looks like. So when you log in, like Kevin mentioned earlier, you can log in through our website, as Kevin demonstrated previously. When you log in with your business email and your password, you will find something like this. This is your dashboard. This will be your dashboard with your specific filings, of course. And then at the top, you will see your filing category requirements. And right below, you will find the name of your department, and then next to the name of your department, your disclosure category. In the example we're seeing on screen, it's disclosure category 1. And then you will see there is a link where you can find more information about what that means and what kind of disclosures must be made based on your category. Also, disclosure categories are described in the conflict of interest code. You can also look it up through the conflict of interest code. You can ask your filing officer for a copy. We can also share a link later, and you will find all the departments listed alphabetically, all the positions that are required to file, and next to the name of the position, the disclosure category and a description of what that means. It is important to know your disclosure category to understand what you must report and who is a reportable source. For example, if you file under disclosure category 1, you must disclose income, including gifts, from any source, interests in real property, investments, and all business positions in which you are a director, officer, partner, trustee, employee, or hold any position of management. If you file under disclosure category 2, 3, 4, that is, if you when you sign into NetFile, you will see at the top perhaps category 2, 3, or 4. You may have to disclose a narrower range of financial interests that varies based on your position and your department. Again, there is a link with more information. Also, your filing officer is a great resource to ask a question, and of course, the Ethics Commission. If you have questions on what your disclosure category is, again, contact your departmental filing officer. We have a directory of filing officers by department online on our website, or you can contact us, the Ethics Commission at 415-252-3100 or at ethics.commission@sfgov.org. We will provide this contact information again at the end of the presentation. Now we'll look at the different components of the Form 700. It contains a cover page and then different schedules. Schedules, it's similar nomenclature to when we file taxes. Schedule means categories, in this case, categories of assets. It doesn't refer to a timeline. It's just different assets to be disclosed. You can skip past any schedule that you do not have something to report or any change to be made. But make sure to make updates to your disclosures if you do have changes to report. On the cover page of the Form 700, you will find first on screen, you see a screenshot of the paper form. So the paper form is something that we filed in the past. Currently, we file it online through the e-filing platform NetFile that Kevin described. Now, when you finish your filing and you submit it with all your information, it's going to look like something like the image on the right. Your contact information is your department's address and telephone number, okay? This is information that has been pre-filled by your filing officer when they created the NetFile account for you. Your departmental address and telephone number is redacted online, so for the online disclosures, but it is available upon request. And then also on the cover page, you will see which schedules or NetFile will indicate which schedules contain disclosures, and it will be signed electronically once submitted. So again, you will see, because this is a public form, we do always encourage to enter business or, for example, city issued email address, business contact information in the cover page. Then next, in the Schedule A1, some kind of overview on the Schedule A1 and some reminders. So Schedule A1 is where you would report the investments in which you own less than 10%. including the investments like stocks, bonds, and other interests owned by you, your spouse, or registered domestic partner or dependent children. For example, if your investments like stocks or corporate bonds are worth more than $2,000 in a business entity located in, doing business, or planning to do business in San Francisco, these must be disclosed on the Schedule A1 if your disclosure category requires that the investments be reported. For example, if you have an item in a trust and it is a reportable asset, for example, a stock or a corporate bond, you will report them if they're worth if they're worth $2,000 or more, and if they're reportable per your disclosure category. Stocks and bonds held in diversified mutual funds or blind trusts typically do not need to be reported because government bonds and diversified mutual funds need not be reported. Keep in mind that the definition of doing business in the jurisdiction is not limited to whether the business has an office or a physical location in your jurisdiction. In other words, if your investment is reportable based on your disclosure category, you most likely have to disclose it. If you have specific questions about Schedule 1, please submit them via the support portal. Thank you. Schedule A2. So Schedule A2 includes the type of investments where you, your spouse, or registered domestic partner own more than 10%. So typically, if you're a business owner, you will report it in Schedule A2. Report any source of income or client that was a source of $10,000 or more during the filing period. Trusts, including living trusts, are reportable if they contain reportable assets. For example, if the trust is located outside San Francisco, it is reportable if it contains assets that are located in or doing business in San Francisco. This includes a 2-mile radius of San Francisco city-controlled property. So, for example, if you own interests in real property, for example, real estate held by a trust, and the property is within 2 miles of the San Francisco airport, it would be reportable. In contrast, if the trust contains only your personal residence or savings account or municipal bonds, it is not reportable. Now, on to the next slide for Schedule B. So some reminders about Schedule B. This is interests in real property. So as we mentioned before, report interests that are worth $2,000 or more in real property owned within the city, and this includes a 2-mile radius of San Francisco city-controlled property. Real property can include real estate, it can be owning land or a parking space in the city. You do not need to report your personal residence like your home or perhaps a vacation cabin if it's used exclusively as a personal residence. However, if you have rental income from property, including rental income from renting out a portion of your personal home, or if you're reporting part of it as a business, disclose that portion. Tenants' names are reported and are not redacted if the Form 700 is requested as part of a document request or through the SF Library kiosk. Now, in terms of loans from commercial lending institutions that are made on terms available to members of the general public without regard to your official status are not reportable. However, loans from a private lender that total $500 or more and are secured by real property may be reportable. So in the next slide, Schedule C, this is where for example, income, loans, and any paid or unpaid business positions are reported. Do report income of $500 or more during the reporting period. That includes income from nonprofits, of sale of property like home, car, bicycle. You must also report the source of income to your spouse or registered domestic partner if your community property share, so your 50%, was $500 or more during the reporting period. Government salary is not reportable. Do not report your business ownership as employment because you would have reported that on Schedule A2, which is the schedule for investments and assets of business entities. And again, I'll repeat that loans from commercial lending institutions made in the lender's regular course of business on terms available to members of the public are not reportable. Next, to Schedule D. This is gifts. This is the schedule where you must report any gifts from reportable sources with a cumulative value of $50 or more on your Form 700. Note that you may be subject to additional gift restrictions under your department's statement of incompatible activities, so please review that as well. As a Form 700 filer, you also have a gift limit of no more than $590 from a single reportable source, and that's the gift limit for 2023 and 2024. There are exceptions. These are just two. Gifts from family members are not reportable, and gifts of informational material provided to assist you in the performance of your official duties, such as books, pamphlets, educational seminars, periodicals, are also not reportable. There are many specifics around gifts, as well as other laws that prohibit gifts from contractors, subordinate, among others. You may find a summary of these rules on our guidance page on a section called Gifts and Travel at sfethics.org. If you have specific questions, please submit them via our support portal. We'll continue sharing that link as well. And then last, on Schedule E, this schedule is for income or gifts of travel, travel payments, advances, and reimbursements. Here, you need not report gifts from family members, and also reimbursements for travel on agency business made by your government agency employer are not reportable. So in the next slide, just to wrap up, brief reminder, just general reminders. The reporting period, so I was referring, during the reporting period, just a reminder that the reporting period for 2024 annual filing is the most recent calendar year. That is from January 1st of 2023 until December 31st of 2023. Another important reminder is that your position and disclosure category will determine what financial interests are reportable and where will you find your disclosure category on your NetFile dashboard. You can also ask your filing officer or contact the Ethics Commission if you have questions. And finally, that reportable financial interests include the filer's own financial interests, as well as those of the filer's spouse and registered domestic partner. They also include the interests of their dependent children. So with that, I'll pass it back to Kevin.
Thanks, Anna. All right, everyone. Now we're going to talk a little bit about filer support and resources. So let me take a look here. So filer assistance. If any of you need assistance, there's a number of places that you can go. The first place would be to your filing officer for your department. I placed a link in the chat that shows the filing officer directory. You can also come to the Ethics Commission website and the support portal. I also placed a link a couple of times in the chat for the support portal. You can just open up a support case and the support team will get back to you in a timely manner. The Fair Political Practices Commission, you can use that commission as a resource as well. There's a phone number listed in the slide, and the Deputy City Attorney assigned to your department. Online resources, it's really there's a couple of them besides the support portal, which is already in the chat. The Ethics Commission website, www.sfethics.org, and the Fair Political Practices Commission website, www.fppc.ca.gov/form700.html. There's actually a lot of good examples within, good tips and examples within that webpage. So please take a look at it. All right, we can move to the next slide. There are other important ethics rules that apply to Form 700 filers, such as behested payments, additional rules on gifts and travel, conflicts of interest, and incompatible activities, among others. Um, you can read more about these and other rules that may apply to you at sfethics.org or in the City Attorney's Good Government Guide. You may contact the Ethics Commission, your deputy city attorney, or submit a ticket through our support portal for guidance if you have questions about your specific situation. All right, and now we're going to start the Q&A session in a moment, and we just want to preface this by we're happy to answer any general questions about completing your forms or use of NetFile system during the Q&A. For questions that are fact specific or require detailed information about your personal financial interests, we will ask you to submit a support ticket to receive advice specific to your situation in writing.